considerably, sort of dozens of messages every week. And that was when it was decided that it was wise to change the status of Bien from being a non-profit organization, international non-profit organization under Belgian law, and make it a charitable organization under British law. Basic reason, not the only one, was that there was no longer anyone in the executive committee able to communicate either in French or in Dutch, and that meant that communication became very difficult for any administrative matter. And so it became, Bien became a charity under British law. It's a bit of a contradiction, right? Because we in the basic income movement have been saying, like Thomas Paine, basic income is not a matter of charity, it's a matter of justice. And so now Bien is a charity. But then there was something bizarre about in 2001 when Malcolm, we started this conversation, because I saw that the headquarters of the Citizens Income Trust were moved to a provisional address, which was in a vicarage. A vicarage. Oh, well, a vicarage. Well, that's a bit bizarre. It must be the house of a vicar. So might Malcolm be a priest? And he is. So he's a priest of the Anglican Church. But not only that. So I gradually discovered another facet, unknown to most of you, of Malcolm, that he is also not only a very prolific author on basic income, but an incredibly prolific author on theology. So he's kindly given me one of the volumes. He has, for example, a sort of 6-volume treatise on actology, which is his own interpretation of his own tradition, theological tradition, which he defends. So it's a man with incredible energy, incredible diversity in his interests, and above all, incredible reliability. I mean, there's some people like him, and two people like him, that we owe the perseverance, the resilience of our sort of organization. So I myself have been very impressed by him all over the years, very grateful to him for all he did, especially the sort of least gratifying aspect of his job. And I think all of us must be extremely grateful to him. Of course, no one is replaceable, but it will be very difficult to replace him. Thank you very much.
Yeah, by definition, Malcolm is irreplaceable. And in the EC, we have this line called, has it passed Malcolm test? So if Malcolm has agreed, which means that it is kosher. As a mark of our deep gratitude, we have made a small plaque to be given to Malcolm Tory. I would like any of the young people.
Kai. Yay!
Okay. Neil said 10 minutes. Looks like I'm taking more time, but still, it's a nice thing. You continue your drinks, please. It won't stop. There's one more.
So there's one more bin, and then we hand over to Annie for 5 minutes.
One.
Charge your drinks.
Yeah, so... Oh. Okay. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, as you know, we as whatever generation I belong to, I'm in the 60s, we are deeply grateful to our founders who have started this wonderful journey way back in 1986. I always remember Philip's and Robert's article a capitalist road to communism. But I think David doesn't agree with that. That's a different story. Now we have small tokens of gratitude to our founders. So I would like Diana. We have 4 or 5 founders here. We can start with Annie.
No way!
And is Tyler here? Tyler, James, or any of the Taiwanese students? Okay, Neil is also young. Neil, you can give it to Philip. Yeah, may I request Leah to give it to Guy?
Yay!
And I request Julio to give it to Walter.
Yay!
I don't think, Alexander is there. May I request,
Yes, is it?
who else is there? Diana, please give it to Alexander. Walter? Is Walter here? Walter, you got one?
Yes.
And now, the man who's going to sing the song, How Many Roads, Eduardo Suplicy. Who's going to give to Eduardo Suplicy? Can anybody volunteer? Okay. Oh, okay. I'm not half his age, but close.
Woo!
I just came out from the section on how the basic income will result in peace in the world, to end the wars. And so, to remind us that when we had wars in Vietnam and Iraq, people came out to the streets and sung a thing by Bob Dylan, Blowing the Wind. So I invite you, all of you, to sing with me, okay? How many roads must a man walk down before you may call him a man? And how many seas must the white dove sail before she slips in the sand? And how many times must the cannonballs fly before they are forever bent? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. And how many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? And how many years must some people exist before they are allowed to be free? And how many times must a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind.
the sky. Yes, how many years must a man have before he can hear people cry?
And how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Once more, everyone! The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Hand it over to Neil. Is it still working?
Yes, it is. We're on. They still haven't gotten to the Berg celebration. Probably
I
Andy's
mean,
going
it's
to do it.
difficult to follow that, but we have Annie, so we're safe.
Woo! Yay!
Thanks, everybody. Before I start, I just want to wave this book in front of you. I sent 250 copies free, and they're on the first floor. Please take them. I don't want to have to carry them home. They're too heavy. So please, they're free. Just take a free copy. Now, what I'm really here to talk about is that this year is the 40th anniversary of what started off as BERG, the Basic Income Research Group. And it actually started in October 1983, when some of us were at a meeting in London of the National Voluntary Council of voluntary organisations. And it was about income maintenance. And during the discussions, I kept hearing voices piping up saying, you wouldn't have this problem if we had a basic income. No, we wouldn't have this problem if we had a basic income. And looking round, we managed to identify each other. And we went off to the pub, as one does, and had a few drinks and exchanged names and addresses because we wanted to keep in touch. And out of that, there was Mimi Parker, who was an amazing lady. I'll tell you about her in a minute. There was a lovely gentleman called Philip Vince. There's a dear friend called Bill Jordan, who sadly had a fall last week and is in hospital, and hope we'll all send him our best wishes for a speedy recovery. And we've been sent a telephone number of his hospital so we can have a word with him and wish him well. And then there was another chap called Stan Windass, who was keen for us to set up but didn't want to get involved in it. And Mimi was really the prime force in this, and she was an economist. She got a first from St Andrews, and she helped to set up the Berg Bulletin. And this was one of the early issues, very well produced, and actually they're worth reading now because they've got exactly the same problems and often the same solutions. And the reason for that is that of the multiplicity of the objectives of people, and often these conflict. And for instance, there's different bases. I mean, some people want to feel secure because they've got a contract on an insurance scheme. Other people feel they have some insurance through some other means. Sadly, social assistance doesn't actually have much much security, and that's why basic income is different. It's not a right, it's not a gift, it's not a contract, it's a restitution of rights which have been taken away from people. If you follow Thomas Paine, who said the land and natural resources belong to the people, then those who have appropriated them for private use owe a debt to the people who've been excluded, and that is you and me. We are owed a debt, and that is what basic income is based on. It's not a gift, it's not a charity, it's a right that we reclaim from the rest of the world. And particularly the film I've just enjoyed seeing. It's very moving. Those people deserve that right restored to them more than anybody else. Anyway, Mimi became the editor of the Berg Bulletin, and she was formidable. I mean, she spoke her mind to anybody in very forceful terms. She had quite a lot of battles with other members of the Berg community, as Malcolm can testify. And, but it was the start, and she really set a sound basis for us. And as I say, a lot of the articles in here are still very valid. Not the numbers necessarily, but she had a lot of good ideas. And one of the amazing things was she must have had an enormous address book, because she could call on people and get very powerful people to write articles for us. And they're still there, that evidence is still there too. Anyway, I just want to tell you that it's been a joy to be one of the founding members and to see the fruits of our ideas. I can't say I've done a lot of work since, but I'm just so pleased that these ideas have taken root, and we're not just mainstream in the UK now, the basic income movement, but we're mainstream in the world. And we look to see great flowering happen everywhere, and everybody should flourish. And it's all based on compassion. Like for all the great faiths, based on love, compassion. Without that compassion and integrity, the life is just not worth living. We need it everywhere. And now I'm going to hand over to Malcolm, who knows even more about that than...
I've been asked to speak about some of the things that the Basic Income Research Group, which became the Citizens Basic Income Trust, learned over the many years that it's existed. But first of all, I really must say thank you so much to Surat and Philly for their kind words. It's been a privilege to serve BN as its general manager and then treasurer for 8 years. It's a wonderful privilege to have seen the way in which BN has evolved during that period. But I'll come back to that in just a minute. There are a few things that we have learned during the history of the Basic Income Research, the Citizens Basic Income Trust, and it's these. First of all, these are lessons that you all need to know, so I hope you're listening. First of all, organisations matter. Now, you may think that what matters most is the movement, the community. Yes, of course they do. But it's organisations that have visions, that make things happen, and that carry on making them happen. It's organisations like the Citizens Basic Income Trust and BN that have longevity, that when think tanks decide they're going to move on to something else, BN and the Citizens Basic Income Trust and all the national organisations involved in this movement, they carry on. And so they can renew themselves, they can do new things, they can pick up on new contexts where they are, and they can continue to make the arguments for basic income in ways that matter. Organisations matter. And therefore, what matters is good governance and efficient administration. Woo! There's one very good reason for that, and it may not be what you expect to hear. The reason for good governance and efficient administration is if you get them wrong, it will take you even longer to sort the situation out than if you've done it properly in the first place. I hope you all understood that. I won't say any more on that subject, I'll get into trouble. The second thing we have learned is how important research is. Research matters. The best research methods you can come up with, the best data you can find, and these are the ways in which you will do education work, you'll do campaigning, because if you don't have the research to back up what you're saying, you will not be heard. Use research in the best ways you can, as many different methods as you can, and particularly This is something for this generation to listen to. I want you to listen to this word. Are you hearing me? It's micro-simulation. Now, this may not sound obvious to all of you. Microsimulation is a vast computer program with all the tax and benefits regulations of a country coded into it. You put through it vast volumes of data, it sends out a load of statistics. You then rewrite the program to include basic income, to change taxes and benefits. You put all that data through again, you compare what you've got, and you will find that you'll be able to develop a basic income scheme that has legs, that you can say to policymakers, this is feasible today. You do not need to wait for some other kind of tax. You do not need to wait for the world to change. You can implement this basic income scheme today. And you can only do that if you have micro-simulation research to back it up. Now, I know micro-simulation is complicated, it is hard work, you have to learn how to do it, you have to put time and effort in. And there's got to be people in this room today who will take up that challenge for the next generation. I've now stopped doing it after 20 years. I've done enough. I was in at the beginning of microsimulation. I've now stopped. It's now actually got much more complicated than it was because it's now had labour market models bolted onto it. You can now do dynamic microsimulation, whereas all we could do was static microsimulation. The world is changing, and you've got to change with it, and you've got to get on with that. Research matters. So those are two things. First, the other thing to say about research is please never divide research from advocacy from education. They belong together. Research is education, education is advocacy, advocacy is campaigning. These are not separate things. These are things that every single one of you can do together. So that's research. Organisations, research, and communicate. It is essential to communicate in as many ways as you possibly can. Back then, we had these wonderful bulletins, which the indomitable Mimi put together. She was a pain in the arse. I was secretary. I had to try and control Mimi. It was my my successor, Richard Evans, who finally got rid of her because he couldn't stand her. Which was sad, but I could perfectly understand what had happened. But she was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. She had a very, very fine mind, and she gave her all to the basic income debate back then. She absolutely, it's really sad that she's now died and she can't be here. Did Tony Water turn up? No, he said he might. He was the first. He was the chair when I was the secretary. He too did a brilliant job back then, and we had a wonderful group of people who really took the basic income research group forwards. And Annie was at the heart too, and became the chair in 2001 when I became the honorary director. It was together that we put Berg back together as the Citizens Basic Income Trust. So communicate. Now, obviously, there are new ways of communicating. James here does the social media for BN and does it brilliantly. And it's not a world that some of us of my generation have ever got ourselves into. We learned how to build websites, and that was a challenge right back in the 1990s, I'll tell you. But we did. So whatever your communication method is now, use it, and use as many as you can. Organisation, research, communication. Now, some of you will now be expecting me to say this. All of those require clear definitions. I see people beginning to laugh. What BN will miss is me going on about definitions. But I will now, for the last time, go on about definitions. Because if there is not a clear definition, which everyone in the debate is following, then if you use the words basic income, you might be talking about different things. You will not communicate, you will not do robust research, because your research will be about different things. So please, Bien has developed a definition of basic income. Please defend it. Now I've said that, I think I've said everything I need to say.
Before Malcolm goes, Malcolm retired from work, Citizens Basic Income Trust, in 2020. And at that time, everything was in such a pickle, we didn't get round to acknowledging all he's done for us. And he's shared his amazing organisational skills, his address book with lots of names in it who've been associated with Basic Income Research Group, and also his amazing reading speed, retention, and editorial skills. And all of these he shared for 1 day a week by the grace of the Bishop of Woolwich. So for half a day a week for 25 years, which is half a man's lifetime, Malcolm has devoted to our local UK charity and made it what it is. And I just want to give him a small gift of gratitude. Thank you very much, Malcolm.
Thank you very much. Now Simon, who's now part of the Basic Income Trust, is going to tell us where it's going now.
I'm going to be really quick, don't worry. But I just felt like I didn't want people to think that the story of Citizens Basic Income Trust was over. 2 years ago I was asked to become the chair to transition Citizens Basic Income Trust in the same way we've been seeing handing over today at the end. So the good news is we're 40 years old, alive and kicking. At the last meeting, I was able to hand over the role of chair, secretary, treasurer, and every other role to a whole new set of trustees. And the new chair of Citizens Basic Income Trust is Professor Matthew Johnson from Northumbria University, a really leading light in this work. And I've got a strong suspicion that the name might change back to Basic Income Research Group very soon. So watch this space. Thank you.
One last word, and I want to thank everybody for the patience. Look, I know it's tough to stand still and listen to folks, right? And so there's an obvious trade-off between just getting hammered, which everybody wants to do because it's been a long fucking day, and honouring the foundations on which we stand. And I have chosen, but there is a we to it as well, to lean in the direction of honouring the foundations. So I appreciate everybody standing with us whilst we do that, because it matters. And indeed, this is one of the last chances where we will have a collective space to honour these foundations. So thank you to everybody. You lot at the back, shut up. Thank you to everybody who has done that. Our last moment is to just give a word to UBIE, to say very little, those folks who have helped us organise this drinks reception, about who they are and what they do, and then we are done. And you can all crack on to the bar, which is just in the process of being replenished. Anthony.
I'll be just a minute, because I can see how you have to go to your drinks, so am I. Can I ask a question first? With a raise of your whatever hand you want to use, who of you believe that if you had basic income in your lives would be better? It's a very obvious question, right? And I'm preaching to the choir here. I didn't know the answer to that because I didn't know what basic income is, essentially, until I met the right person at the right time. That time was 2013, and at the time there was a European Citizens Initiative to aiming basically to bring an unconditional basic income to every European citizen. The initiative didn't work in the sense that it didn't gather enough signatures to go forward, but what it did succeed in is bring a community around a common cause, that is basic income. And that gave birth to an organization that is called Unconditional Basic Income Europe. As you can tell by the name, we're mostly focused on the region, is that how you use the BN terminology, of Europe. A decade later, we have over 400 members in around 30 countries in Europe, doing things like coordinating the local communities for basic income, organizing different types of events, designing art exhibitions, and many, many more things. You can find many of our members here, so you can reach out to us and talk to us. You can also find these leaflets that show you more or less who we are and what we do. And I will finish with an invitation. A month from now, actually a bit less than a month from now, we will host our General Assembly in the city of Krakow in Poland. Our General Assemblies are open to everyone basically willing to attend. And yeah, we want to invite you there. And what we'll do as a final thing that I need to mention here is that we've been inspired by the progress of the mayoral pledge in the United Kingdom for basic income, and we want to basically do the same thing in Europe. So what we'll launch in Krakow, potentially with our help, is a mayoral campaign for European mayors in support of basic income. So see you in a month. Now let's get treats.
Okay, the bar is open.
Yay!